Hi, how's it going? This is President of Colloid for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. Here to do episode 15 for you. Um, Narrated obviously by Alexander Moltke, written by Art Wallace, directed by Leila Swift. I'm going to call out the wiki on this one. Yes, the Dark Shadows wiki. They are wrong on this. It says time. I have it pulled up for a reason. It says timeline 1967. It's not 1967. It's not. They're going. These. I've been talking about this throughout this whole thing. Yes, this is a new episode of DS, but keep in mind, from a day standpoint, this is only still the second day of Collinsport and Vicky's first full day here. We're still in 1966. We're not in 1967. I take it for the most part that at least some of these beginning episodes are 1966, not 1967. It's rec- it's recorded July 1st, okay? 19 broadcast July 15th, 1966. And really, when you watch the shot of this, of where they filmed this, you can sort of tell it's July-ish. The leaves are still on the tree and stuff. Um, by where they shot this, I mean, there's a scene where Louis Edmonds' character is driving a cart off Widow's Hill. This is the episode where Roger has his car accident, and by the end of this, you have to watch really carefully. Watch the leaves on the tree; they're there. If this were later in the year, if this were like October or even August, you probably wouldn't see the leaves so much, or at least the colors would be changed. Now, you might not be able to tell that with black and white with leaf color, but if the leaves were off the tree, you'd be able to tell. They're on it, and you can see that. Um, so to me, this is 1966, not 1967. The timeline is wrong, because again, Vicky arrives. Those 5 episodes, I think 6 total, have been one. I think we're one episode. The next set of episodes is day one, because remember when she wakes up, oh, I'm gonna leave. This is still that day, though it's nighttime. It's nighttime officially. It's still that night because remember, Victoria Winters says about I know what you said to me earlier today. You wanted me to leave. Well, when him and that's not where this scene starts off. I know I'm jumping around, so I apologize. But I wanted to make this point that the wiki is wrong here. The timeline is wrong. It's not 1967. It's 1966. And I say that because this is still Victoria's first full official day on the job. Her first full official day. Because remember, she showed up at night. She showed up at night. She stayed that night. Well, okay. This is her first full official day. Now, because that night that happens, the night is long in Dark Shadows. Because remember, Carolyn gets sent home from the Blue Well by who? Burke Devlin in the first official night of Vicky's arrival and Burke's arrival. Again, time in Dark Shadows, it's strange, but when you're paying attention to it, it's not as strange as we think because not each episode is a day passing. I know you might view it as that, but that's not necessarily always the correct thing. It's not that a day passes or a complete day has passed. With these episodes, a full day has not fully passed yet. This is Victoria. This day and night here is Victoria's first full official day on the job because she had threatened to leave Then she gets talked out of leaving. Then she talks to Matthew Morgan, etc., etc. Again, a lot of things going on. Again, Matthew Morgan catches her in the basement. This is all that was, guys. Day one, a lot of stuff happens to Victoria. It's not her first nut. Now, I know this is what's weird. It's her first full official day on the job. This will be the second night she stays in Collinwood. I know that sounds strange, but trust me. Go watch the episodes. Okay, so I know I just jumped around there. I gotta pull it back here. David is just he's just sitting in he's sitting in the drawing room, completely in the dark. I love how dark the room looks without lights on, and it doesn't. When Roger turns the lights on, the room is still in black and white. Looks pretty dark. It's lit, but black and white sort of gives you that shadowy look and stuff. Um, me, I would say Dark Shadows has a lot of noir to it. It's not just light and shadows though. Noir. It's the mood of the characters, and really that's what represents noir is the mood of the characters, the language of the characters, and a lot of the language of the and in this episode especially, you do get some noir, and by noir from David, especially from young David Hennessy, who's playing young David Collins. Um, I don't want to jump around, but I'll try to stay in order here. So, you know, Roger is looking for his car keys, and you have this moment where David is asking, "Are you going to take your car? Do you really, Roger asks, "Oh, do you know where the keys are?" And he says, "Do you really want to send me away?" He asks his father this. Now, this is not going to be the first time he asks his father this in this episode. And he tells his dad, "I won't let you." So David, in his own way, is issuing a threat toward Roger. Um, and I love what Lewis Edmonds does here. He just shakes his head now, like, you're unbelievable. um, his characters. Um, Victoria does talk to Roger Collins, that she's made friends with young David, and she feels she has. I do feel with this episode that Vicky, with this episode, Vicky realizes that she feels she's sort of, characters. I'm trying to think of the word this. Characters often make mistakes. But I think when a character makes an honest mistake, from my standpoint, it makes that character more human and more believable and more real. I think this is where people just say, well, Alexander's character was just dumbed down. She wasn't very smart. It's easy to sit back and watch a fictional show and judge the character prematurely. When she's talking to sort of out loud or to us, the audience, in a weird way, not directly necessarily, but we sort of have to see things through every character's eyes. Okay, so through Vicky's eyes, she sort of she feels David in this episode, and because she became friends with him in the previous episode, which is still the same night as this, she feels David is just a misunderstood young boy who is pushing his own father away. Now, she's not wrong fully. David is pushing his father away. But she also is trying to make David understand that she says Roger doesn't mean what he's saying. Roger doesn't mean that he wants to send David away. It's And you might say, well, why would she say something like that because again, she's trying to ease a young boy's mind. From a character, she's not necessarily trying to lie to him. She figures, hey, if I can ease his mind on, hey, your dad wants to send you away, your dad wants to send you away. Okay, your dad's been under a lot of stress lately. And that's true. She's not wrong there. But what she doesn't realize, Roger says something to her in this episode. Roger tells Victoria in this episode, again, I just want, she said, because she calls him on what he said on With Us Hill, you still want me to leave. Don't, I know you want me to leave, but I feel I've made friends with David. I finally broke through here. I may have had a breakthrough, is basically what she's saying. In this episode, Roger tells her, you know, be careful with that. And really, I only want you to leave because of Burke Devlin. I want you to leave because Burke Devlin is in town. And, me, my sister, my son, we're all going to be, Carolyn, we're all targets. I don't need an additional target. That's what he tells her. He tries to baby face himself in this episode. And I feel that's where Vicky is misleading herself. And again, it's not necessarily a character. I don't call that a character flaw. I call that human being flawed. Because Vicky wants to see the good in everybody for the most part, and she does. And to her own fault. That it doesn't make her a bad character because you understand her disposition. That here's this character, though she's looking into her own past, she's trying to put out this fire with David. Well, she's trying to put out this fire with Roger. Hey, I'm reaching through to your son. And I do think by the end of this, she somewhat gets to Roger to a degree, and I'll explain what I mean. That, like I said, Vicky tells Roger she's made friends with David, and she's convinced she can help him. Okay, she asked Roger to buy some magazines for David in the prior episode, um, and she, which is the same night, she repeats it here. Well, she says she's going to ask. She tells David in the prior episode. Um, so she asked Roger in this episode. Roger's basically dismissed her. Oh, I won't have the time. She says, well, you can't. He tells her you can't buy David's love with magazines. Okay, I love Liz here when she walks in, and she does ask Roger to see him before she leaves, but she says, he Victoria realizes Roger's looking for his car keys, but there's also a standpoint of, you know, David doesn't doesn't want to be anyone's friend. David David is not worth saving, and basically what Roger's implying. He doesn't say those exact words, but he's implying it. And Liz takes exception with it. He goes, however, whatever you want to say. Basically, he's like, if you wish, whatever, you think he's this sweet little angel, Roger. Roger's basically been telling Elizabeth, he's not this sweet little angel you think he is. And even Carolyn sort of sees through David too. Again, there's a difference between two people who've been around somebody and somebody like Victoria who's been in a foundling home full of kids who have been. Vicky is viewing David like one of those kids from the foundling home. And what she's seeing is there are similarities. She actually tells David that there was a young girl in the foundling home who, you know, she thought that no one wanted to be her friend, yet anytime a new kid came toward her, she would push them away. Really, the person who hated her the most was she hated herself. What Victoria is trying to tell David, it's not that your dad hates you, it's that you hate yourself. You're sort of, and and I love that child psychology. It shows Vicky's range as a character that she has, a good degree of, she's using child, though she doesn't have, I don't think she has a degree in psychology, but she's using child psychology, which is smart. Um, I love that. Um, that, but David does tell his Vicky that his father lies all the time. David's not exactly wrong here. Roger is lying to Victoria in this episode. He's lying when he says he wants to protect her from Burke. He just wants Vicky to leave so he can fight his sister even harder to push to get rid of David. Now he's not going to win that battle, but you got to understand this episode is about a potential chess move for Roger Collins, and it's a major one in his mind. Roger isn't worried about Elizabeth's warnings to him. You see, Elizabeth is a nervous wreck in this episode about her brother meeting with Burke at the Blue Whale. They even get a phone call from Burke at the Blue Whale, and when Roger meets with Elizabeth, Roger does admit that he is suspicious of Burke, but he won't know Burke's intentions until he meets with him at the Blue Whale. And Liz goes, "Okay, I get you want to meet with Burke." I think really Roger's just telling things to his sister that she knows he wants that she wants to hear. He knows that his sister wants to hear certain things from him, but Liz does warn him. I want you to be as suspicious as Burke Devlin as you are just as like you're suspicious with your own son. And I can't say she's wrong here. Again, Liz brings up points that are true. Burke does blame Roger for those 5 years he spent in prison. We all know this. That we know that Burke is coming back to sort of wreck Roger, wreck the family to a degree. But again, our characters, though they're suspicious of it, Liz especially more so in this episode, because Roger tells her, "Wait a minute, you tell me to whatever with him. Now you're telling me the like." And what Roger's trying to say is, okay, you let me fight him my own way. I told you, Roger says in an earlier episode that I'm going to fight him my own way. Well, this is sort of Roger's own way, but really what Roger's doing, in my view, is who does Roger want to be with? Who does Roger want to get rid of? David. And I think that's more his thought in this episode. That if Roger feels, hey, if I can get a business deal with Burke Devlin and get on my own 2 feet from under my sister's rule and get rid of my son, I will. And I do get that sense in this episode. But, and I'll add this, there's a moment in this episode where, Victoria goes to David, who, reiterates his father hates him and wants to send him away. Vicky learns that he thinks everybody hates him but his mother. But, just like Vicky's, this is where Vicky tells him about the young girl. And David, this is where I say there's noir. Noir is dark conversation too. It's the verbiage of something, not just the light and shadow. David says that girl should line those people who didn't like her up against the wall and just shoot them and kill them. He goes and bang, bang, bang with a toy gun. Vicky is saying, "Give your father a chance. You won't until you do. You won't really know." And that's what Vicky is saying to David. She reaches David in this episode. Say what you want. Victoria Winters, Alexander Moltke's character, reaches David Collins in this episode because what by the end of this episode, what does he try to do? He tries to convince his father not to go in his car, not to leave. And then he says, "Well, do you really want to send me away?" Again, it's a question he asked earlier without Vicky's mention because he has doubts about his dad. He has doubts whether his dad truly hates him or not. David also insists that there are ghosts in the house. What are, okay, we may not hear them, but are ghosts literally whispering dark thoughts into David's head? That might be going on. Though we don't see it, it doesn't mean that it's not actually happening. Even Elizabeth in this episode is worried, and she says sometimes I feel like this house talks to me. I think that's accurate. I think the house does talk to her. I think the ghosts in the house are talking to her. I think the house is so goddamn haunted that it literally tries to manipulate some of the people in the house. Unless you're doubting Thomas, like Victoria Winters. But she's going to become a believer eventually. Um, I do think we get early on. I know we don't have the ghost of Quentin. We don't have the ghost of Gerard yet. But in these beginning episodes, they're really planting seeds, really, of evil ghosts, of evil spirits within the house of Collinwood. At least in my view, they are. And again, in the final act, Elizabeth, they do get that call from Burke. Victoria Winters tells Elizabeth that that Burke was by Roger's car. She saw Burke by Roger's car. So, and that's when Elizabeth does tell Roger, don't go, don't go. And I love Lewis Edmonds' line here. Lewis says, "Your ghost talking to you. Let them rest, my dear." He pats her on the shoulder. I love Lewis Edmonds' line. No, look, Roger isn't terribly fond of his son, and you do get that sense in the very first episode. But when you go look at the end of this episode, and David asks that of his dad, Roger doesn't yell at David. He goes, "David, I just have to go." He doesn't answer him because he doesn't know how to answer him. He doesn't know how to look at him and say, "No, I don't hate you," or "Yes, I do," to his own kid. It's something he didn't fully say to his own son when his son was in a room and there was a disagreement between the two of them. He says, "Sometimes I just wish, look, I wanted to be a dad, okay? And I have two beautiful children. And I'm lucky and I'm blessed to have two children. And I have a lovely wife who who gave me those two children with my help. I had very little to do with it. Um, but she did a lot of work. But raising them, we've both had a lot to do with it. There are people who want to be children, who want to be parents, and there are people who don't. Yes, they end up having kids, but they didn't really want a kid, you understand? And really, that's who Roger is. Roger is somebody who didn't really want a kid, but got one. And he has no idea what to do with him. And that's who Roger really is. I do think Roger is very paranoid of people, and that you do see, but I also think he's somebody who doesn't want to fully embrace responsibility at times. And like David pushes people away. Vicky's not wrong, but I wish Vicky, Vicky is trying to rope Roger to care about his son. Vicky should, I wish, again, I'm not trying to play Monday morning quarterback. I wish Victoria would have called Roger out and said, "Quit running from your responsibility." And really, that's what Liz is trying to get across to Roger, too. You know, when Liz is saying he's your son, she's saying, in a sense, quit running from your responsibility. Face it. That's your son. Face your, and be a man. Those might not be the exact verbiage, but that's in a sense what's being said to Roger. And I think this is a great, great episode that you can really pick a lot of that up on, and plus the previous episodes too. And again, it's a phenomenal episode. I hope I broke it down good for you guys. Um, I know I didn't repeat a lot of the verbiage word for word, but a lot of the things I'm saying are in these episodes, and especially here. Vicky does reach David. Vicky is trying to rope Roger. Hey, participate here. That's what she's really trying to get Roger to do, is participate in his son's life. Because hey, a single parent participating in their son's life is better than no parent participating in their child's life. I'm trying to word this in a way because, look, I had a piece of shit father, but I had a fabulous mother who I miss dearly. And I'll say this, that we learned a lot of things. Okay. I learned how to treat people through my mother, but I also learned how not to treat people through my dad. You don't treat people like shit. You treat others how they want to be treated, and vice versa. That it's easy to have a kid. How you raise how you raise them is the responsibility of the adults who were a part of the physical love participation. Hope I worded that. I tried to make it PG here today. I wasn't trying to be preachy. Just this episode hit home for me in a lot of ways. Rewatching it again today for the third time. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day and take it easy.